Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're exploring the life and mind of an absolute visionary from the 10th century, Al-Masudi. People often call him the Herodotus of the Arabs, but honestly, that kind of sells him short. We're talking about a scholar whose mind-blowing insights range from early theories of evolution, literally hundreds of years before Darwin, to documenting mysterious, super dangerous voyages across the Atlantic way before Columbus. So get ready, because his story completely flips how we look at the medieval world.
Okay, let's dive into this. At the time, a lot of scholars were pretty sedentary, confined to their native libraries, just relying on outdated texts. But Al-Masudi? He had a totally revolutionary approach, actual empirical fieldwork. He fundamentally believed you couldn't truly understand human history or geography without stepping outside and experiencing the world firsthand. To him, the world itself was the ultimate library.
So, here's our roadmap for today. We'll hit the Arab Herodotus, explore the meadows of gold, map out the seven seas, dive into evolution before Darwin, and wrap up with the unknown land.
Section 1. The Arab Herodotus, a lifetime of exploration.
Now, even though he was surrounded by the super vibrant intellectual environment of the Islamic Golden Age, Al-Masudi wasn't content just sitting around talking to other scholars in Baghdad. He actively went out of his way to find diverse perspectives. He consulted Zoroastrian priests to verify Persian history. Over in Syria, he literally picked the brain of a Byzantine admiral who'd converted to Islam just to better understand the Byzantine Empire. He was basically building a universal, globally sourced history by talking directly to the people actually living it.
Just think about the sheer danger and the commitment a 40-year journey required back in the 10th century. Leaving Baghdad around 915 CE, he kicked off this epic expedition across the Afro-Eurasian world. He headed to Persia, diving deep into their political intrigues. By 920, he's over in India observing Hindu astronomy on the Malabar coast and even venturing toward China to document their trade. By 922, he's sailing down the coast of East Africa describing the absolute riches of Safala, which was a true city of gold. He finally settled down in Egypt much later in life just to document everything. I mean, the guy covered more ground than Marco Polo would centuries later.
Section 2. The Meadows of Gold, Masterpiece of Universal History. Now, what's really interesting about this is the beautiful visual metaphor he used to describe his magnum opus, Muruj al-Dahab. He definitely didn't see himself as some chronicler of dry facts. He wrote that he was like a man who had traveled the world, found all these unique pearls of knowledge, different cultures, different histories, and was now gathering them together to string into a beautiful, cohesive necklace. He wasn't just listing dates, he was showing how the whole world was interconnected. His book actually combined history, geography, and social anthropology with just stunning impartiality. He documented everything from the deep inner workings of Persian political dynasties to the advanced mathematics of Hindu astronomers. He recorded the socio-economic impacts of trade riots in China and the super lucrative amber and gold markets of East Africa. He was basically inventing what we now call multidisciplinary studies, smashing together history, economics, and anthropology centuries before anyone even came up with those terms. He really brought these civilizations to life.
Moving right along to Section 3, the seven seas, scientific geography and climatology.
And this brilliantly illustrates a massive paradigm shift in how the world was viewed. Older geographers who relied heavily on ancient Ptolemaic theories had a lot of things totally wrong, like thinking the Indian Ocean was mostly just a giant landlocked lake. Well, Al-Masudi actually sailed those waters, and he corrected them. He also completely busted the ancient belief that the Caspian and Aral Seas were connected. How? By physically going there, exploring the region himself, and proving they were totally separate bodies of water.
He didn't stop there either. He merged geography with human biology through his theory of climatology. Building on classical Greek ideas, he divided the Earth into 7 latitudinal bands, or climes. And he tied this right into humoral pathology, which was the ancient medical idea that bodily fluids dictate your health. For Al-Masudi, the environment actively shaped societal development. He argued that the middle climes, like the 4th clime where the Abbasid Empire sat, were the most temperate, which led to more balanced temperaments. On the flip side, he theorized that extreme heat in the far south or extreme cold in the far north actually distorted human physical appearance and societal behavior. It's just a fascinating look at how medieval science logically linked climate to human nature.
Okay, I absolutely have to share this vividly specific anecdote because it hits the nail on the head regarding his meticulous eye for detail. While he was in the Mediterranean, he observed some wreckage from Indian Ocean ships, and he noticed that these ships were stitched together with coconut fibers instead of being fastened with standard iron nails. Now, why is that?
because from his own travels, he knew the specific salinity and chemical makeup of the seawater in the Abyssinian Sea, the Indian Ocean, would literally dissolve iron nails. It's exactly that kind of boots-on-the-ground empirical observation that made his work a real game-changer.
Section 4. Evolution before Darwin. The Great Chain of Being.
This is where things get really wild. Al-Masudi engaged heavily with the concept of the scala naturae, or the Great Chain of Being, but he added this highly dynamic, progressive mechanism to it. He proposed that the natural world evolved in stages, where one kingdom literally prepares the way for the next. He mapped out a progression starting from minerals, which over massive amounts of time gave rise to plants. Then, the highest forms of plants, like the date palm, bridged the gap to the lowest forms of animals, which then kept progressing all the way upward toward humans.
The specific terminology he and his contemporaries used for this is philosophically profound. They frequently used the Arabic word tekamul, which roughly translates to perfection or evolution. Now, to be clear, we aren't talking about Darwinian natural selection driven by random mutation here. For these medieval scholars, this was very much a divinely guided evolution, but it framed adaptation and the survival of the fittest entirely within their worldview, seeing the whole universe as constantly striving upward toward a higher state of biological and spiritual perfection.
Let's move to our final chapter, Section 5, The Unknown Land, Mapping the Atlantic Mystery.
Let's see how this builds into one of his most provocative findings. When you look at his reconstructed worldview, which was typically oriented with south at the top, totally standard for Islamic cartography back then, there's something incredible. If you look to the ocean southwest of Africa, there is a massive landmass labeled Ard Majhula. That translates directly to the unknown land. Al-Masudi wasn't just sketching mythical sea monsters at the edge of the world. He was explicitly asserting the existence of a major unmapped territory far across the Atlantic Ocean. And that leads us right to a highly provocative question that scholars are actually still debating today. Did Andalusian sailors manage to reach the Americas half a millennium before Christopher Columbus? Al-Masudi's explicit labeling of Ard Majhula, combined with some very specific texts he left behind, are exactly the pieces of evidence that proponents of pre-Columbian contact point to. You see, he didn't just label a blank space. He documented actual voyages. He recorded the fascinating account of a young man from Cordoba named Kashkash. According to Al-Masudi, back in the year 889 CE, Kashkash assembled a crew, set sail from the Spanish coast, and deliberately navigated right into what they called the Ocean of Fogs, the Atlantic. After a really long absence, he actually returned safely, bringing back fabulous treasures from an unknown territory. Al-Masudi notes that this perilous, successful voyage became a famous story known to literally everyone across Al-Andalus. He even documented other adventurers, like the Mugarudan from Lisbon, who sailed west for weeks until they found an inhabited island. Whether they stumbled onto the Caribbean, the Americas, or just some Atlantic islands, Al-Masudi made sure to meticulously record their bravery. So the crucial point is that Al-Masudi fundamentally shifted how we record human knowledge. By getting out of the dusty library and actually stepping into the world, he set a totally new benchmark. The great 14th century philosopher Ibn Khaldun wrote that Al-Masudi became an imam, a model for historians. He became the absolute gold standard for empirical scholarship and was deeply respected centuries after his death for his insatiable curiosity and his genuinely global perspective. Al-Masudi's life absolutely challenges everything we think we know about the timeline of human discovery. I mean, from anticipating evolutionary biology to mapping mysterious Atlantic continents centuries ahead of schedule, he forces us to realize just how incredibly advanced medieval scholarship truly was. So, I'll leave you with this lingering question. If a 10th century scholar knew all of this, what other incredible ancient knowledge has been lost to time, just waiting to be rediscovered in the pages of history? Thanks so much for exploring the world of Al-Masudi with me today.